Welcome to 2 Cents Wanted, and for those who have been here, I know it's been a while since I've done a video, but we're here, so let's just get to it. Sadly, this video probably won't be nearly as long as the Old Man Yama's version, because 1, Bambietta isn't in the series as long, and 2, Bambi is a specialist, meaning she excels in one style of fighting, while Yamamoto is a complete all-around fighter with feats in every single department. With that, Bambietta has shown no proficiency with Quincy spells, aside from the Bankai stealing medallion, and she doesn't have any blatant feats of hand-to-hand combat. But even with that, Bambi is exceptional in other departments, not to mention whatever feats or statements the Bambis like Giselle, Lil Toto, Meninius, or Candace themselves perform or get later would upscale Bambietta, seeing as she was more powerful than them. So without further ado, my favorite Sternritter, Bambietta Basterbine. Personality. Bambi is a firecracker with the potential of an atomic bomb. Bambi has a superior attitude towards others and seems to make concessions for only Yhwach. She is very loyal to the Vonenreich as a whole and even led her own group of female Sternritter, but she isn't above openly trashing or attacking other Sternritter and subordinates. She is cocky, demanding, and short-tempered. Very short-tempered. She is also always willing to use force to get what she wants and can be provocated at the smallest slight. The best example that usually pops into everyone's mind, and my own, is her very interesting complex where she picks male subordinates and kills them after she, quote-unquote, samples them, mainly due to frustration. This is probably how she copes with things she can't physically lash out in the moment, as when she did it in the manga, it was in regards to Uryu being named successor by Yhwach, in which Yhwach specifically ordered them to do nothing but accept it. The very last thing is Bambietta's fear of death. It's expanded on more in the books, but Bambi fears the concept of death. As per her fate in the series, she doesn't want to be a zombie, but she prefers being a zombie to being dead. And if she was truly aware of Yhwach's plans, it would give a good reason as to why she followed Yhwach in the first place, as he would be creating her ideal world of stagnation. But I must say, for a woman that fears death, Bambi fights in combat a lot, and when confronted with the concepts of death like Soul Reaper and how Sajin gets his immortality, she doesn't freeze up, she just kind of blasts through it. It's highly impressive because it's showing she overcomes mental shortcomings with power. It's on better display versus Shinji when he completely disorients her with Sakanade to the point she is nauseous. And yet she powers through, powers up, and blitzes Shinji. The concept of her loving death matches and fearing death I think is encapsulated in her comment to Sajin after he reveals he's quote-unquote dead. The whole point of fighting is that you don't want to die, that you'll be killed if you lose. If you just throw your life away in battle, then what is the point of winning? I think this quote summarizes how she views death and battle. If she succeeds in battle, she has conquered death. If she defeats the Soul Reapers, she has conquered her fear of death. Sword skill. Bambi's sword technique and power are extremely impressive for a person of her size. In the manga, we don't get to see her direct sword strength or skill, but we do know that she was capable of overpowering Sajin, Iba, and the other officers of the 7th Division with her sword and without the use of her Schrift. In the anime, she was able to generate enough power to stalemate Sajin when clashing swords, and just like in the manga, was shown to have overpowered multiple combatants off-screen with just her sword. This is impressive because Sajin trained directly under Yamamoto, who is stated by the data books to be the best Zanjutsu or sword user in the series. Sajin has also shown competent sword skill versus Kenpachi Zaraki, a great swordsman in his own right, and Tosen, another formerly trained swordsman. Even Iba was competent enough to be a high-seated officer, potentially lieutenant in the 11th Division, which is the combat division of the Gote that prides itself on melee combat. We don't have any in-depth understanding of her sword skill, but we can understand her style from what little we do see and the sword she specifically chooses to manifest. It is difficult to exactly pinpoint the sword, but it looks like a falchion, Zulfikar, scimitar type weapon. No matter which exact blade Kubo based it on, the blades all share the same quality of being light in weight and used specifically for speedy slashing, which is exactly the way she uses her weapon when she cut all those Soul Reapers and their Zanpakutos toes in half with a single swing. Bambietta forms: base, Volstandig, and zombie form. I'm putting these 3 forms here because everything after will be a mix of these feats, and I will specify which form she's in when she performs those feats, or what statements are made about what form. Bambietta has a base form, a Volstandig form that increases her power, and a zombie form which even in Volstandig is shown to be weaker than her base counterpart. Zombie Bambi shows less speed and power than even her base counterpart. She goes from defeating Sajin, Iba, and a division in her base state to being overwhelmed by Ikkaku and Yumichika as a zombie with her Volstandig on. She ultimately wins, but suffered a fatal throat stab that she lived only because she's a zombie. Quincy Volstandig is a power increase to all of a Quincy's stats. It may increase speed, strength, Blut techniques, and more. We know at the very least it increases speed because we see Robert Acutron go from getting folded by Shunsui to moving fast enough to get out of his line of sight and land a critical blow. The Volstandig also increases a Quincy's ability to absorb Reishi faster with better control and dominance. This also includes the Sklavre ability, which allows them to pull apart bonds that hold Reishi constructs together, including things made of pure Ryatsu. It also gives them the power of flight via wings, which can also increase their attack range and speed, and gives them an advantage in aerial combat over other beings who have to use footholds. The Volstandig may also increase the ability of the Schrift. In Bambietta's case, it gives her the ability to increase the volume and speed of bombs she can throw, and increases the area in which she can distribute said bombs. Her flight essentially allows her to fight at long distance with a rapid fire of her durability negating bombs. And because the bombs are infused with her wings, she has bombs prepped at all times. Her flight speed allows her to gain distance almost instantly when pressured, and in the case of her battle against Sajin, her getting caught was a matter of his immortality allowing him to ignore her attacks, and the size of his Bankai to cover a long distance. Speed. Bambietta's speed isn't anything to scoff at. Between her actual movement speed, flight speed, and her attack speed, she is a force of nature. Her speed allowed her to blitz and cut Zanpakuto and people in half with a single swing. She was also able to keep up with and surpass Shinji and Sajin in combat speed, which may not seem impressive, but as seen from both Shinji and Sajin in the past, they were capable of keeping up with hybrid power boosted combatants like Grimmjow and Tosin. Shinji, in Turn Back the Pendulum, could outpace the Shunpo of other captain level fighters like Rose, Love, and Lisa in order to save Hiyori, Lisa even having a head start. This is also reinforced by Hachi implying they all were running together as a group when they left Seirete. Then in the Arrancar arc, Shinji is capable of overwhelming Grimmjow, who is capable of matching and surpassing Bankai Ichigo in speed. Sajin himself has shown the ability of performing admirably in combat against the likes of Kenpachi and Mask Tosin while using his Bankai. The speed of Sajin's Bankai itself seems to match Sajin's speed exactly, and given its massive size, it doesn't just make its speed deceptive, but harder to dodge due to its wide area. Despite the amazing feats of these two combatants, they could not keep up with Bambietta. In her base form, she was capable of besting Sajin, but the moment she used her Volstandig, neither Shinji or Sajin were capable of fully dodging her attacks or keeping up with her flight speed. The only exceptions being in one case when Sajin saved Momo from 2 bombs, and the other where Sajin's immortality caught Bambietta off guard. This is also exactly how Sajin has to catch her flight speed. He has to leap with his Bankai, which covers a massive distance, and essentially use his immortality to tank through her attacks to catch her off guard, just to land a hit. Shinji was blitzed by her bombs and taken out with 1 shot. This, mixed with the feats of the Bambis later, like being able to fend off Royal Guard trained Byakuya and keeping up with high tier Sternritters like Basby, would put Bambietta in the tier of the faster characters of the war. Schrift. Bambietta's attack power and destructive power are essentially tied to her Schrift, so will all be included in one section because Bambietta almost exclusively demonstrates these feats with her Schrift. It is tailor-made for power. A misunderstanding of her Schrift seems very common among the fanbase, the writers of the anime, and those outside of it. There is a lot of talk about Duraneg in the anime debate community, but Bambietta literally can do that. Her Schrift allows her Ryatsu to turn anything it comes into contact with into a bomb itself. She can throw around explosive Ryatsu and blow up anything her bombs come into contact with, no matter their durability. The reason I said the writers also don't understand her Schrift is because blocking or defending as a conventional defense does not work. In the anime, Sajin was capable of cutting her bomb in half with no repercussions, yet Kubo goes out of his way to point out multiple times that blocking with a Zanpakuto would lead to the weapon itself detonating in your face and it being destroyed. This was stated even with a weakened version of Bambietta. The bombs seem to range in power based on what they touch and how much Ryatsu she actually pours into it. We've seen her turn Shinji's own skin into a bomb with 1 single orb, that completely devastated him, leaving him on death's door. We've seen with a flick of her wrist use a contained bomb to blow up an entire floor of a building and half of a Soul Reaper. She can even create miniature bombs that have enough detonating power to eliminate 2 lieutenant level Shinigami without making contact. Just 2 of her bombs in Volstandig was able to blow out the chest of Dangai Joe, a Bankai that is the size of a skyscraper. And when she actually wants to output a more devastating blast, she can even pour her Ryatsu into the air, ground, and surroundings to create an explosion that grows exponentially more powerful as it expands. And this requires no buildup or delay like her bombs do. This is something that she did without actually exhausting herself in the slightest, and without the aid of her Volstandig. Meaning, she could perform this feat repeatedly and on a higher scale if she wanted to. This is even further implied by Giselle, claiming Bambi could end the war with her Volstandig before it ever even gets started. Meaning she could probably flatten all of Serete with her bombs if she wished. This isn't far-fetched, seeing as if not for his immortality, there was likely no one who could match or defeat Bambietta aside from Kenpachi at the time, or Mayuri with his devices he created specifically for her. Bambietta's Explode Schrift is capable of unleashing these reishi bombs at a seemingly endless and rapid rate, meaning the bombs themselves don't seem to exhaust her in the slightest. And she could outpour them like rain in any direction she likes due to her Volstandig wings giving her access to her bombs at all times. Just because Bambietta generally chooses the unrefined bombardment approach to battle doesn't mean she doesn't have very precise control of her power. She displays this refined control multiple times. When attempting to shut up Gigi in Candace, she cuts a rectangle with her Ryatsu that blows the same shape rectangle all the way through the palace to the outside with her explode ability. When battling Ikkaku and Yumichika in her diminished zombie state, she could still effectively make bombs and control the direction of their explosion. Bambi seems like a dumb brute who fights with unrefined skill and power, but she's actually a scalpel with the power of a nuke. Quincy technique, Blut. Like I said earlier, aside from her Blut and Schrift, Bambi doesn't show any proficiency with Quincy techniques. But with her Blut Vene ability, she is exceptional. Her Blut may arguably be the strongest of any of the Sternritter. I don't make that claim lightly. The Blut Vene itself can increase a Quincy's defensive capabilities to match that of a Soul Reaper's Bankai, as stated in the new information title cards of the anime, and demonstrated in the manga several times. One example being able to resist the passive heat of Yama's Bankai and match that of Yama's Shikai, which is in and of itself more than a match for other characters' Bankai. Now some people may be like, well, those are the higher tiers, she doesn't have that feat, and I say, nay, ye of little faith. When it comes to Bambietta's specific usage of the technique, her Blut is terrifying. She was taken off guard by Sajin's new Bankai regeneration power, and was hit by Sajin's Bankai's hand. The last time we've seen someone get hit by this, Mask Tosen's arm was mangled. Bambietta wasn't even scuffed. She can resist the detonating explosive power of her own bombs when she escaped from its grasp, which she is convinced that not even Captain-class Soul Reapers can withstand. The only reason Sanjin could was because of his immortality and regeneration ability, which he even admits to and even attempts to avoid her bombs several times despite this. Taking a direct strike from a Bankai and detonating her bombs in close proximity left some scuff marks, but the true test of her Blut was what happened next. Bambietta withstood the power of Sajin's Dangai Joe sword swing, mixed with her own bombs that were pushed into her body. She survived this massive, overwhelming power, and it wasn't like she was going to die from her wounds. Gigi specified that she had to actually kill Bambietta in order to turn her into a zombie because she was still alive. If Bambietta's defensive power allows her to take on the full amplified force of Sajin's pure Ryatsu, along with her own attack directly, then there isn't much any of the non-Soul King-like characters can dish out that she couldn't withstand. Don't doubt Sajin's strength. He was far stronger in the second invasion than he was in his first. His fight with his grandfather and his immortal body would give him more power than he had previously, and Sajin's Bankai being the 10 times boost, plus its increase in destruction due to its size, makes his Bankai a walking powerhouse. Even looking at the defensive capabilities of the Bambis later, they easily shrug off Burner Finger one hits while being off guard from Basby. Toshiro couldn't take Burner Fingers from Basby. Both Lil Toto and Gigi didn't die from their encounter with Yhwach. which is more impressive for Little Toto than it is for the zombie Gigi. Little Toto took a Schrift-empowered punch from Menenius like it was nothing and defeated her without killing her. If the weaker Bambis are doing this, then Bambietta herself should be more than capable of performing the same feats with her Blut. Summary. Grade S tier. Bambietta is without a doubt one of the strongest Sternritter in the war and potentially after it. If she had used the Sklavray ability on Sajin's Bankai, I believe it changes the story significantly, but that's a video for another day. Her speed, power, and upscale based on the Bambi's performance later in the series shows she was worthy of being one of Yhwach's elite guardsmen. She should be able to actually defeat some of them with her Schrift. Now I can hear some of you scoffing at the idea of elite guard Bambi, but remember Yhwach was picking from the available Quincy, and she was dead at the time of choosing. Not because she was unworthy, but she fought a being that was for all intents and purposes immortal and potentially gaining power as he fought. None of the other Sternritter, aside from maybe Gremmy, Lie, and Gerard, could have outlasted that Sanji. And remember, just because they were Yhwach's elite guard does not mean they were inherently more powerful than the other Sternritter. The base power of the elite guard doesn't seem much higher than the Sternritter initially or even later, and it's usually their Schrifts that make their potential power truly terrifying. Shunsui had some trouble with Robert, and then later bodied Lie's base form, not even taking a single hit of damage. Drugum believed Basby to be worthy of joining the elite guard ranks, and was surprised when he was not selected. Volstandig Basby himself stalemated with Royal Garb Renji, who was in Bankai at the time. This is impressive seeing as Renji bodied super amped Mask, but it is less impressive when you see Menenia and Little Toto fend off a stronger Byakuya. The Bambis all take direct blows from True Shikai Ichigo, and their Bluts held up, meaning Bambietta's would also hold up at the very least. Plus, comparing destructive power, Bambietta performed a feat equal to Basby's Burner Finger 4 while he was in Volstandig, but she performed the same feat in base. Not to mention, Basby unsuccessfully tried to kill Shinji with a Burner Finger 3, and failed while Bambi only needed one bomb. And that Shinji was still grievously injured from the Bambi fight. Again, with Bambietta being stronger than the Bambis, and the Bambis later having impressive feats against superior opponents than Renji, based on the performances, Bambi should be more powerful, or at the very least equal to Basby. Askin Naklavar was just a regular Sternritter as well before he was promoted, and he performs better against Oetsu than the other 3 elite guardsmen who have been with Yhwach, at the very least Lie, from the jump. Also, looking at the Royal Guard before the selection, all 3 are divine beings. Pernaida, Hand of the Soul King, Gerard, Heart of the Soul King, Lie, Yhwach's first Sternritter and Angel. Hell, Jugrim is a true Quincy and a carrier of the Almighty. So when it comes to choosing whoever joins our ranks after comparing them to the 4 divine ones isn't really fair, but comparing Bambietta to Askin and Basby does. Even if you want to argue Askin's performance is due to his Schrift and not his reaction speed, that Askin performs better than the other elites against the Zero Division, it ultimately doesn't matter because I believe Bambi's Schrift to be even above his. Pernaida and Askin are sitting ducks in comparison to her Schrift, and most other characters are as well. If you've seen my ranking the Schrifts video, please don't, it's terrible. I explained why Bambietta has a top 10 Schrift amongst the Sternritter, and that it's over Schrifts like the Death Dealing, Compulsory, and Heat. Don't get me wrong, I'm not claiming she is the strongest. That definitely goes to people like Gerard, Gremmy. But her Schrift, Blut, speed, and loyalty is more than worthy of the elite ranks and your respect. Remember guys, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Y'all have a good day, good weekend. Bye.